This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
The motto of Lego Serious Play is it ensures that everyone is included and that all voices are heard. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to use this for dementia. It doesn't say all voices except people with dementia.
Caring for aging parents or other loved ones while working, raising children, and trying to live your own life? Wondering how to find the time for your personal health and happiness? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Happy, Healthy Caregiver Podcast, the show where real family caregivers share how to be happy and healthy while caring for others. Now, here's your host, family caregiver and certified caregiving consultant, Elizabeth Miller.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Happy, Healthy Caregiver Podcast, which is part of the Whole Care Network. If this is your first time listening, welcome. This is a show produced bi-weekly to help family caregivers integrate self-care and caregiving into their lives. We also are now part of the Whole Care Network streaming radio channel, so be sure to check that out if you'd like another option to get a lot of caregiving resources and support into your listening ears. Each episode is accompanied by a show notes page, so if you'd like more details about the topics, products, and resources we speak about, you'll find the show notes by going onto the website, happyhealthycaregiver.com, and underneath the podcast menu, click the image or episode number for today's show. The link is also going to be found in your podcast platform's episode description. Is your company looking for a speaker for their employee resource group or an organization you're affiliated with planning an upcoming expo, conference, or appreciation lunch for caregivers? If so, consider passing along my name and organization as a potential speaker. I'm available as an in-person or virtual speaker and enjoy connecting with family caregivers, fast-tracking them to support and resources. I'll link to my speaker page, which includes a speaker demo video in the show notes page. For today's segment of What I'm Reading, I finished a book called Hello Beautiful by Ann Napolitano. It was an Oprah's Book Club book, and at the time of recording, it is a nominee for the 2023 Goodreads Choice Awards in the fiction category. It's essentially a family story, and it pays homage to Louisa May Alcott's Little Women book. It was given to me as a recommended read by my husband's aunt. She said that pieces of it reminded her of my big family, particularly the sister element. It's an epic family saga spanning 25 plus years, and I tend to like books with chapters from different character perspectives. I particularly like the first quarter and the last quarter of the book. The middle maybe dragged out a little bit for me, but I love the sister component and the whole bond that the family blood has. The writing about various emotions such as guilt, depression, anxiety, grief, resentment, love is really spectacular. And I found myself reading these portions and saying, yes, that is what this emotion feels like. Families and humans are flawed, and secrets are not healthy, and healing comes by sharing and being vulnerable. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I'll link to it in the show notes page. I have said before that sometimes Netflix is self-care and other streaming platforms as well. And I've listed that before in one of my blog posts, and I'll link to that too. But this time for this episode, one of my favorite things is a particular show that is on Netflix, and it's called Nyad, Nyad. And it's a gem. It's a 2-hour biopic movie that I think that any caregiver and really anyone interested in U.S. history and women would enjoy. So athlete Diana Nyad sets out at 60 years old to achieve a nearly impossible lifelong dream to swim from Cuba to Florida across more than 100 miles of open ocean. It's a nail biter, frankly. It stars Annette Bening and Jodie Foster, who do an amazing job acting. It's an inspiring story of perseverance, goal setting, hope, and it's based on a real U.S. female hero that I didn't even really know much about. I'd never heard of her before tuning into this show. The friendship between Jodie Foster and Annette Bening's characters definitely gets tested. And one of my favorite lines was when Jodie Foster says, her name was Bonnie in the show, says to Annette Bening, Diana, do you have any idea how exhausting you are as a friend? And it kind of reminded me of something I'd want to say to a care recipient at times. Do you know how exhausting sometimes you can be to care for? And yet we're still there and are still there, supporting them and showing up. This biopic is rated PG-13, and I will link to it in the show notes so that you can check it out on Netflix. Before we get into today's Caregiver Spotlight episode, I want to shine a light on our episode sponsor, Rare Patient Voice. Do you want to earn cash in exchange for your opinion? Rare Patient Voice, or RPV, helps connect researchers with patients and family caregivers for over 700 diseases and conditions. For patients and caregivers, RPV provides the opportunity to voice their opinions to improve medical products and services while earning cash rewards. Rare Patient Voice, helping patients and caregivers share their voices. If you are interested, join the RPV panel at rarepatientvoice.com/happy healthy caregiver. Let's meet today's caregiver in the spotlight. Loretta Woodward Veney cared for her mom, Doris, who lived with dementia, and she also cared for her aunt, her sister, her husband, and many others. Loretta's care experiences prompted her to write a few books, become a trained Lego serious play facilitator, and inspire others through her speaking events and engaging workshops. In this episode, we talk about how creative play with Legos can help care partners connect and remain calm, why identifying those in your care village is critical to your success as a family caregiver, the financial strains of caregiving and frustrations around the Medicaid waiver process, how her faith community surrounded her with goodness after the loss of her husband, Tim, and why Loretta's current self-care mantra is stay and play. Enjoy the show. Loretta, great to be chatting with you today. Welcome to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast.
Hello, Elizabeth. Great to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to just dive into our conversation, but we always start the episodes off because I know you believe in a lot of inspiration, motivation too. So
yes,
This is my Happy Healthy Caregiver jar. It's like a collection of quotes and things that have resonated for me as a caregiver that now I share with other caregivers through a PDF. And let's see what your quote says today. Loretta, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. It says, you have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. And we love a good rhyme. And that's from Dr. Seuss, actually. You know, brains in your head, feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose.
Your shoes.
What does that make you think of when you think of caregiving and self-care? And
sometimes you need to use your brain and walk away.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that is, sort of caregiving wrapped up in one. Your brain is usually always saying you need to be doing this and this and this and this. Okay, and there's never nothing on that list. So sometimes you just have to put your feet in those shoes and choose to go outside, whether it's 5 minutes for a walk or to get ice cream or, whatever. I think there are lots of times, sometimes when we hear from caregivers, some of what we hear is, I'm spinning out of control and all that. And a lot of times that is because we don't walk away for a minute when we should.
Yeah, it's true. We can get in our own way sometimes. I know I was guilty of that during different caregiving seasons. And we feel like we're, in the right place, but sometimes it is good to just kind of stop and assess and figure out what's going on. Well, I know a little bit about you, Loretta, but I know that some people might just be meeting you for the first time. I know you cared for your mom and you called her affectionately Wonder Woman. I love that. I hope my kids call me Wonder Woman someday. And,
All right.
and then you've also cared for other people, but tell us a little bit about your caregiving
Ah,
experience.
so yeah, even before, my first practice, and it really was practice, there was classes and everything, was my grandmother. And we made this team, she had colon cancer, so she needed to have the operation where you have the colostomy bag. So you had to watch a video and then practice on the dummy how to do it. And we were going to be doing this in shifts. So we knew that was a start.
Wow.
And that's probably the first time I have ever told that story. But somebody else asked me recently who knew, I went to a funeral for a person who was a neighbor years and years ago in the place where I grew up in DC. And somebody was mentioning once when my grandmother fell down and we all had to help her up. That was really how we began to realize something was going on with her. And so she was like, and she said something like, y'all took such good care of her. I was like, wow, I didn't even know that was the beginning of my thing, because, we had this little sign up sheet and you would sign up for the shift that you want to do. But you had to know how to do that bag. And I remember my sister missed the class. And so I had to do her shift one time until she took the class, because you couldn't do it unless you did it, because, that could cause
you were being a
massive
nurse,
infection. Yeah, if you didn't do it. Anyway, so then fast forward the years, not that many years. I think that was probably 98-ish, 1998 or so. And my mom was diagnosed in 2006. So not that far apart. And so you learn you can't do it by yourself. And, some of those, kinds of things. So my mom was diagnosed. That was a weird.
With dementia,
time.
correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
And right around 2 weeks after my mother was diagnosed with dementia, my sister was diagnosed with MS.
Oh.
And I had been, we knew my mom had something, and I had told my sister I was going with her to the appointment. But my sister was having all kinds of issues and lost her sight for a while. And we just couldn't figure out. She ended up getting fired from her job. I didn't know you could fire somebody who was sick, but okay. Yes. And so I was trying to take care of them both. She was head of Head Start in Maryland. And so it was a, big job and everything. So anyway, I knew this wasn't going to go well. And after it was finally, diagnosed, what it was, I took her to live with my sister, to live with my niece, because I knew I couldn't take care of them both. My sister was already she already needed, help. So that, was a thing. So I did long distance caregiving for her, and then caregiving with my mom. I talk about it in the book some, but I don't talk about that that much. But some people who know me well know that all happened in the space of a few weeks. And then we called it the trifecta. And then a couple weeks after that, my mother's little sister, who was 19 years younger, she and my sister were only 3.5 years apart. And she was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And they said she would live 6 months, and she died. We took care of her. And so it was just.
You're a serial caregiver. That's what I call
2006 serial. Was horrible. And, one of the reasons why one of my, greatest lessons, is caregiving is, kind of have a backup plan. We had always assumed, you should never assume, that my aunt the youngest one, would be around to help us, the rest of the cousins, with our moms. And it did not play out that way. And so, it really was just, us. So I think right at the beginning, you learn, a lot of interesting.
Were you working? Wow. Were you?
I was still, yeah. And the great part about when my mom was first diagnosed, I had just started a job 2 weeks before her diagnosis, and it was 2 blocks from my job where she lived. Yeah. So I could go up there and have lunch, and that was the coolest job ever. And everybody knew about the diagnosis and everything. And, it was cool.
You felt like your work environment was supportive for you?
Yes, very much so.
Okay,
and even
good.
Even the job I had after that, they were as well. So I didn't quit my job until COVID. During COVID, so many caregivers were calling me, Elizabeth, that I quit my job. That's how I ended up quitting my job.
Yeah, well, you and I have a similar story there. I was
Yeah,
working
yeah,
and I resigned in May of 2021. I think we were part of the Great Resignation, Loretta. That's
we
what,
were.
yeah.
We
And
absolutely were.
you get clarity in those times of what's
You
going
do.
on. And it's like, no, listen, if it were easy, everyone would do it. And
Everybody would be doing it.
I know you're pounding it like I'm pounding it. And
Yeah.
we're definitely not all in it for the money, but we do have to make a living.
We do.
But helping caregivers is definitely something that we share. And glad to have you as a peer in this space. When you reflect back like on your caregiving journey and
Yep.
various journeys, really, like what were some of these key resources, tools, strategies that you felt like in hindsight were really helpful for you that you would want to fast track other people to sooner rather than later?
So the first was kind of funny, the Alzheimer's Association. I didn't know anything about dementia and Alzheimer's and all that, and so I think on the way out of the doctor's office there was a little brochure or something. I guess I picked it up, and on the back of it, it talked about some seminars or something, free. You could go. Not all of them were free, but some of them were, and I probably went to every one of those, like the first couple of months. I'm sure they were like, here come that girl again. Because I was always there. Like I'm sitting in the front row and I'm learning all this stuff. Oh my God. So yeah, like you're gonna hear better or make it better if you sit in the front. But anyway, so I did that. And all of the checklists and things they have in the documents, AARP, same thing, the prepare to care, all the different documents you get. And you learn about, all the things that you need. I was a list kind of girl anyway. I come from the security industry where you have to, when people's safety are, at risk, you have to follow different things like a fire alarm. You did the fire drills in school. So yeah, we did drills and we did all that stuff. So you plan for those kind of things. So I tried to approach my caregiving role in that same way. What do we need? When are we going to need it? How are we going to get out? Get in, stay in, as the case may be. And so I think that was it. The one resource I would say I wish I had had, there are so many things you don't know. So I had never heard of the waiver. It's a Medicaid waiver program. It is a low-income program where if seniors are going to have difficulty paying their rent or whatever, it's a program designed to keep people in their homes longer instead of going to long-term care, which most low-income people could never afford anyway. So I didn't know about that. I knew that depending on how long this journey was, my mother was going to outlive my money. It was as simple as that. So trying not to go bankrupt down the road,
So you had already spent through her money. Now she's on to your money.
Yeah. So, not all of it, but like when it first started out, after she ran out of, her savings, she had quite a bit of savings. So we ran through that. And then, so I would say that was year 4 or 5, I guess. And then after 3 years after her diagnosis, so 2009, I finally learned of this resource. I'm like, oh, this is great. I didn't write the book till
Who shared it with you? Who shared the resource?
I went to one of these caregiver summits. I believe it was in Baltimore. I think it was right along that time when I met some of the people that I work with now at Johns Hopkins. And so that's how they had a table. And I was like, oh. So
like, why is it so hard? My point of asking you this question, Loretta, is like, why is it so hard? Why is it so hard to, like, it's so fragmented, and it's, and your story starts back, years ago. Mine starts years ago. We're still kind of there where like caregivers are showing up in the offices and they are just trying to scavenger and duct tape it and like put it all together until they hopefully stumble on someone like you or me or another, speaker or coach that can fast track it to it. So it's like, we need to do better here.
We do. And so I was on that list. So 2009, when I put my name on that list, there were 23,800 people on the list in front of us.
in your state of Maryland, because this is a state specific
and
program.
it was run out of Baltimore at the Department of Aging, and it took 8 years and 6 months. 8 years, 6 months.
Did your mom
did
she even get to benefit from this?
Yes.
Okay.
Every year they would call and say, "Do you want to remain on this? Don't take my name off that list." Yes, they would call you every year. And then when they called you, so the first clue that you're getting close to the top. And this is a really sad list, and a really sad situation, Elizabeth, because in the back of your mind, you are waiting for 23,000 people to die, or
some
their
money.
Adult child comes from Atlanta and says, "Okay, mom, you coming to live with me." So they pack up your stuff and take you out of the state. Those are the only two ways people got off that
Although
list.
in Georgia, we have a late list as well.
Oh,
like last I heard, it was 7,000 people. So maybe,
they stopped taking names here a couple of years ago. I don't know what the status is now. I mean, they were never gonna, clear that up. And so it was interesting, the financial impact that people had, because when we first were adding to her rent at the group home and thing where she lived, we were just probably doing 300 or 400, 500, then it went to 700, 900. And by the time we got to 2015-ish, we were paying $1,500 a month toward her rent. And that was cool when my husband was still alive. That was less cool when he died.
You're on one income. Yeah.
So you're kind of like, oh, I love it. But thankfully, the book came out. My first book came out in 2013. And so every speech I gave and every book I sold went to pay for my mom's care. And it was so funny. My mother's favorite thing to say was, I have to pay my own way. I'm thinking, yeah, girl, you keep thinking that.
She just thought this was like magic. And I can imagine the stress level for you, Loretta. And
that was crazy.
I'm sorry for your loss of your husband and your various loved ones. And it
got down to me and her, which was the win. See, this is what we get, Elizabeth. Me and my sister used to joke all the time that my mother was going to outlive all of us. She was the oldest of 4. And so she outlived the sisters and her other child, her son-in-law. You're like, this is so crazy. My sister and my husband died on the same day, 5 years apart.
Wow.
And it was interesting. And so one of my other biggest lessons, and I was just talking about this the other day where was I the other day? Rochester, New York. And we did some Lego stuff, but we were building it around the 4 greatest lessons I learned from being my mom's mom. And the second one was, sort of be prepared for everything, but be ready for anything. And, have a backup plan. I didn't have a backup. I wasn't sure how long. My sister had a lot of illnesses, as did I, over the years. But when she got MS, they said when you get in your 50s, and she only lived like 3.5 years or so. So it went pretty, fast. But I still thought I'd be fine because, I had Tim. And so we were Team Veney. It was so cool. And so when he died, I was like, oh, it was, I can't
When
even
did your husband
it.
die, Loretta?
Say again?
What year did your husband die?
2016. So it's been 7 years. So I still had 7 years to go with her. And by then it was just me and her. So I was so terrified, literally, of getting COVID. I'm all she had. It worked out incredibly well for me because when he died, my church had put together a support group just for me. And what they asked me to do was to write down all the things Tim did for my mother. And each one of them took a thing. So, yeah. So, and what was really amazing about that was that, Tim did everything for her, and how we really were a team, because I was, still working, as I said. And so he was a retired DC cop. So he retired at like 47, something like that, 46. Oh my God, he was young. And so he would pick up, if my mom had a doctor's appointment, he would pick her up at the non-assisted living. He would drive her to the doctor's appointment. I would leave work, meet them at the doctor's appointment, do the doctor's appointment, and then I go back to work. They went to the mall and lunch and to the museum. They were inseparable. I was, when he died, I was like, what am I going to tell my mother? My mother had forgotten by the time my sister died. My mother had forgotten she had 2 kids, and her being in California, she hadn't seen her for 3 or 4 years. And we couldn't do FaceTime because my sister lost her vocal abilities fairly early on. And so when she did talk, she sounded like she was drunk, and that scared my mother. She slurred, so we couldn't even, do that. So I would talk to my sister and give her updates and stuff, and she would nod, even if she couldn't ask questions, or sometimes she would write it down and hold it up, and then we would do that. And I was there when she died. I flew to LA, and I saw her a lot, actually. And so
I just want to hug you, Loretta. I just want to put my arms around you and give you a big hug. And yet, at the same time, like, I know you radiate life. Like, I've heard you speak, and I've watched you on different things. And I know people listening, though, as I want to backtrack a little bit to something you said, is like, it took you eight years and 6 months for the Medicaid waiver. You're down to a single income. You don't have a lot of financial support options. Like,
right.
The question they're thinking right now is like, what did she do? Like, how did she how did she bridge the gap between that and your Medicaid waiver? Like,
oh, that's a great, so yeah, thankfully, by the time we got off the list, then they take, her little, I think her monthly income from her 31 years in the federal government was like $1,300. You can't buy a closet these days with that. No. And so that was her. And let's not forget I think 100 at one point, 150. I think the most she ever got from Social Security was $200 a month, and that was right before she died. And so I don't know what you're supposed to do with those small amounts of money, but whatever. So for me, really it was about, just doing the speaking and all of that, so I could comfortably do all those things without her having to, worry about anything, because you still had to buy the pens, because when she couldn't live alone, she went to a group home. Well, you had to buy all the supplies and things, until you got into those programs. So for me, it was really, I missed this phase when I had a stepdaughter, because when I met her, she was 8. So she was past that diaper. So, that was my first foray into having to go get, the pens and all that kind of stuff, missed the wipes, all the stuff I hadn't ever done. And so, it was just an amazing learning curve. But in hindsight, you think you and your spouse are going to live forever. And so Tim's passing just so suddenly, it was just such a rude awakening that you're kind of like, wow, what could I have done differently? I do get that question a lot. What would you have done differently? And I don't think I would have done anything differently per se. What I would have done, I think, is, and I did some of that, I was going to say, have some people who could step in. So, like, for example, I try not to travel too much when my mom was still alive. I did travel, but I would try to only be gone like a night or so. Mm-hmm. Now I can stay a couple of days and hike and see the town and all that stuff. Whereas before I would rush back. So she, and by then she wouldn't even know I was gone, but I tried doing that. So, but if I had, there were a couple of ladies at church who were friends, but were also occupational therapists, and so when I would go away, they would take over some matching stuff for her to do and stuff like that. So that was cool. So they made sure somebody was visiting her even if I wasn't in town. So that was good. So I would have done more of that. Like, I tell people, I actually show a couple of schedule things where you can have your little team, your village. I have a picture that I show of this humongous mountain range in Switzerland where we hiked. And in my book, it says, in my second book, which is mostly pictures, the caption I added to that picture, the mountains are just gorgeous. And there's a little village. You see all these little houses, like 20 some houses in this little cluster. And if I'm doing it in person, I will have people get out a piece of paper and write down all the names of the people in their village. I said, because look at these mountains are wonderful. I said, but when it snows, they can't get out of there. So they have to help each other cook and somehow get, pharmacy to drugs or whatever the older people need. So they depend on each other, in this little village, because if they don't help each other, nobody succeeds. So I tell people to write out who's in your village and don't wait till it snows to figure out who your village is. So that's and because the caption is like, these mountains are gorgeous, but they can also feel heavy when you have
and fearful.
Right support.
Yes.
I mean, it is too much. It was on the Sound of Music tour. And, we don't even have on hiking clothes. We hiking, all these 80-year-old people who grew up there passing us.
And I did that Sound of Music tour too. I love it. I love that area.
It's crazy, right?
It's amazing. You've touched on so many different things. I love the concept of the care village and the mountains. You touched on the fact about paid speakers, and I know you and I are trying to lead the charge potentially with some other people on paid professional speaking for caregivers and book people. We've got our masters in caregiving from the experience that we have, and we can really help a lot of people, whether they're employers or organizations or caregiving expos and lunch and learn. So tap into that and don't expect it for free. We've got bills to pay, and sometimes in your case, you're probably still trying to catch up from some of that. Use your expenses that was for you for later.
Yes, because you do need it, because you don't know that's the other thing. I'm gonna be 65 in a couple of weeks, so you're kind of like, okay, now you get to that point where I won't say how much longer you're going to do this, because I have a ton of energy. And I think, I was sick for a long time when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and into my late 30s. I was sick for a long time. And so I was like, okay, maybe I got all that out of the way early. So this is like the best point of my life. But yeah, I think that's true. What I would say about the paid speaking is this. I think that we are always willing to make concessions. So if I do things for state people, a lot of them have very limited budgets. I'm cool with that. I do encourage people to get sponsors and things like that. So we'll
work with you.
Work through it. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think there is a thing sometimes. So I think if people keep their expectations reasonable, then yes, we can work, because you don't want to, I can hear my mother saying, do it anyway, because somebody in that audience really needs it. And then when you go and you do it, even if it was kind of against your better judgment, or you knew somebody was taking advantage of you, you met a person there who was in tears or something, who really needed it. And then you're really glad
and maybe there's other ways, like you said, sometimes they buy books instead of the speaker fees, or in addition, sometimes
absolutely
you can get recommendations and reviews, or maybe they're going to share video content that's going to help you with your social, there is a lot of way to slice
the video things I have gotten. I went to Portland just a few weeks ago, and one of the things I loved about that is that I was going to miss the conference, but my suggestion was, because my cousin lived right down the street, I was like, what? I'm going to be in Portland. What if we recorded it and then you play it at the conference?
Yeah.
They were like, oh. And then I wore the same thing. I was in New York that day doing a Lego thing for the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. And it was going to be over right when on the Pacific Coast, right when they were finishing up the thing. So I leave the Alzheimer's Foundation thing. I run into this conference room. They put me in, and I got on the same outfit. So they and you can hear the music playing, and here she is live, and I'm like.
And here's the thing, Loretta, caregivers. Family caregivers have lots of skills, and one of them is that they are very creative problem solvers. And so I double dog dare you to bring a problem to a caregiver that they can't kind of try to figure out how to navigate through this, because they have had to show up and be resilient and just get through it. But let's talk about you've mentioned kind of the Legos. We've talked about some, and I want to kind of dive into some of those, a creative care. That's what when I think of you, the creative care tools that you share with people. How did all of this come about? How did this creativity and Lego life come about for you?
Yeah. So the Lego thing came about because my mom, bought me a box of Legos when I was 5. I don't remember the the day or anything, but I remember being a very little person and having Lego bricks. And so she did not buy, I'm sure it was because she couldn't afford it. I felt bad when I got to be of age where I realized how much Legos cost. Like, oh my gosh. But she just bought us a box of just mixed up bricks, right? Not the plane, train, automobile kind of thing. Just she wanted us to use our own imaginations, right? So what it became for us was just a family thing. You know how people sat around and played Monopoly and all that? Our thing was Lego. And so if some boy didn't like me at school, we built with Lego. If she had a hard day at work, we built with Lego. I mean, I got all A's, we built with Lego. I mean, Lego was good, bad, ugly, it was that thing. But what I noticed right away, today I would say, my mom had a lot of anxiety and depression. But what I noticed is that whenever we were building with Lego, she was very calm. She didn't need what my sister and I called, what I now would say was probably an antidepressant. She was so relaxed with the Legos. We had such a good time and we could talk about anything. And so fast forward to the day of her diagnosis. And we get in the car, and of course she's devastated, Elizabeth. And so, I had this bag of Legos in my car, and I had a little lap desk kind of thing tethered to my dashboard. So to keep my mom calm in the car, instead of her saying, I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home 1,000 times, I would get the Legos out and she would build. Well, that day I asked her to build how she felt about her dementia diagnosis. And she didn't exactly do that. So instead, she gets out her little Lego, one of these little Lego people. I don't have the hair on it like she had. So, you have the little thing. And I asked her to build, how she felt. And instead, she pops the head off that thing. She holds it up and she says, I feel like in a few years, I'm going to lose my head. And I put that on social media and people went crazy. Like, oh my gosh, look at how she chose to represent that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Were you already a Lego serious
I was not.
play?
So that nope. So that's a great question. Okay, so she was diagnosed in 2006, and around 2008, 2009, I started looking into this thing called Lego Serious Play, and it was designed, has nothing at all to do with dementia or caregiving. It was designed for one purpose. That was to help businesses have better success. So in other words, they wanted to catch Mattel as the #1 toy company in the world, and they were not that. So they were asking people to look into it. So they got some academicians in the UK and said, how can we be like better, stronger, faster? We got this great toy. And they had flirted with bankruptcy at one point, but it wasn't then. So they asked some people to see how they could do this thing. So they came up with this theory that's magnificent. So how you go to a regular meeting, one or two people talk, the rest of the people sit there and nod a lot, right? And so you got the CEO, the COO, all the initials, and they make all the decisions. And you know how sometimes we've worked places and you think to yourself, I could do a better job than that. You do. And I always ask people, raise your hands if you've ever thought that I could do a better job than that person. You're like, mm-hmm. But nobody ever asks you what you think. So what Lego Series, how it is designed is the motto of Lego Serious Play is it ensures that everyone is included and that all voices are heard. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to use this for dementia. It doesn't say all voices except people with dementia.
Right. And they were thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility long before probably anybody else was, it sounds like.
But yeah, they didn't have those people until later. But yeah, that was it. So now, that's how it works. So now when you have a meeting, you give people this task to build with these Lego bricks, and then they build it and they tell their story. So they hold up this little thing, you pointing out to all the little parts of it here. So this little Lego thing, this orange piece reminds me of the sunrises we watched together, whatever. And you tell your story. So
you're connecting basically over Legos. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's
so you tell your whole story. And it was designed to help businesses. So if I go to a assisted living place, and I've done this, and you ask everybody in the room to build a model that represents, we know this is a great place to work, but if you could add or change one thing to make it even better, what would that be? And I mean, it's always the people without the title that has the best answers. In one case, the woman's title was, she was the morale person, I guess is the great way to put it, but her title was like coffee cart. She would go, it's just like it sounds, she would go around this little cart, pushing this cart. It had cups of coffee and tea and granola bars and whatnot. So, she knew everything. So when we went around the room, I'm sitting next to the CEO. She has like the best idea ever. He looks at me, how long has she been here? 12 years. And they had never had a conversation.
Yeah.
And she ended up getting a big bonus and everything for that idea. Now, would that have ever come up? And especially young people say this to me all the time. If they're in an organization where most of the people are, in their late 40s, 50s, 60s, and you got the little 20-year-olds running around, people are like, oh, what do they know? They know a lot, and you probably should talk to them. So, but they don't.
They bring different experiences, different stories,
so,
different.
Most of the time when they have their idea and they're trying to share their idea, nobody listens. And this one kid, same kind of situation, he had the best idea. He wanted in the adult day program, he wanted to have dinner. His suggestion was to have like a movie night where I'm not your caregiver that day. We just two friends watching a movie, right? So the adult children whose parents were in this adult day, they came and they cooked spaghetti and everybody had popcorn and they all sat in the recliners. They invited me and they all sat, and the boy was so proud. He was like, probably his first job out of high school. I think he was 19 or 20. He calls his mom from the Lego room. He said, Mom, they did my idea. They did my idea.
Yeah.
So
and the places he's going to go from there with that confidence, it was so cool. From that idea.
And I went to movie and the executive director said to me later, I would never, ever have thought of doing that, ever. Where once you're not saying, take your pills. Oh, you didn't do your PT today. We just some friends watching a movie, and the dynamics in that room, everybody was hugging. It was amazing. And that never would have come up.
No.
Without that.
So does the world need more Lego serious play facilitators for
the
care economy? Yeah.
Yeah. So I won a MAUD award this year, and for
MAUDE. Right.
Yep. For innovative ways of communicating with people. Because my mother was of the mindset that if you find a solution that works, you don't keep it to yourself. You share it with other people. It's as simple as that. And so I started doing it at, other than with my mother at adult days. And I've had people talk again that hadn't talked in a long time. And so, I just started, it just took off from there. So not only giving them tasks to build, favorite memory. I've had people talk, after 3 or 4 years about a cruise they went on 15 years ago that happened at Sunrise Senior Living. That was a crazy day. And then when the niece asked her aunt why she never talked about this cruise that they had gone on, she just all of a sudden started talking while they're building this cruise ship with Lego bricks.
Yes.
And the whole place just fell apart. People were crying. People were taking pictures. It was craziness. And so the niece looks at her aunt and says, Auntie, you remember the cruise? And she was like, of course I remember it. And she was looking at her like, she said, you never talk about it. And the aunt said, you never asked me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
well, it's one of the things, like, I feel like when you're saying that, like my journal is a prompted journal. One of the things I've seen that people do with it is use the questions to connect and ask other people, because you are so, like, as caregivers, we're sometimes just doing that. We need to just live and connect and enjoy these people's company. And then one of the partners I've had in the past that I'll include in the show notes too is like Connectivity's box, like where it's a box that gets delivered. Same kind of thing. It's like, these aren't about like completing the little DIY things. And the same way, it's not about for you, like doing the Lego thing. It is the connection that is coming from this creative play. And what you're also reminding me of, Loretta, is like my mom, she had some cognitive things at the end of life. She was bedridden. But you're reminding me of a lot of really good times I had with my mom, where we would play games. We would play Connect Four or Uno, or we would do adult coloring. We didn't use Legos. I'm kind of regretting that, but we used Play-Doh. Like, we did a lot of stuff.
Good too.
Yeah, a lot of stuff with Play-Doh.
I tell people, it's just, you have to find your thing. It might not be Legos, but it's so funny because now I get the question all the time, because everybody looks at my earrings. Oh, you got on Lego earrings? Oh, you bracelets? I do have a Lego bracelet. And people are like, oh my God, Legos. So everybody asks about it. So I get to the airport, I get these huge bags of Lego bracelets. People are like, oh my, are those Legos in there? The TSA, some in TSA call me the Lego lady. And so it just kind of stuck.
You are
So
the Lego lady. Yeah.
So it's kind of a cool thing. Who wouldn't want to be that? And, to end up, having Robin Roberts say your name on Good Morning America because it's a Lego bricks. That's a thing. So you're kind of like, oh,
yes, I'm going to link to some of your articles, and that Robin Roberts thing was a great thing. I mean, listen, as solopreneurs, if someone's listening and you have like access to media stuff, like earned media for us is everything. Like we cannot pay like the big dogs play with, paying for social ads and all that. So help the folks out with the earned media opportunities. You've got 3 books, I think, right?
I had the coloring book we did for her 90th birthday, colors flowing from her mind. And then I had the picture book of all these places my husband Tim and I had gone over the years. That was one of the most amazing things, that he's not here, or he had helped pick out, the 150 some odd pictures that are in the book. And so of course I dedicated it to him. We both took all the pictures that are in the book, and with the sayings. And so he knew that it was going to be in, but it came out like 3 or 4 weeks after he died. And so I know, but yeah, he knew exactly what was going to be in it, and these were just photos that we really love. So one of the things that is at least acceptable about him not being here is that we didn't wait till we retired to travel. We went 3/4 of the way around the world. So that part is
amen.
It makes it a lot better. So
you lived, you didn't wait till the end of life to live. You lived, and the Millers are the same as Team Veney, is that we travel, we experience life. And what I love about that is that you get to use all the senses. Like it just heightens everything. Yes,
you absolutely do. And one of the reasons why I loved my trip to Europe this a couple months ago was because especially you had far in front of us in terms of dementia, and how it's much less stigma there than here. So it was very cool talking to carers over there, as they call them. And so that was a neat experience. And then of course going to Lego headquarters, where one of the guys who helped create Lego Serious Play, and he was one of the speakers, he was going around to meet all the people he didn't know, because they have this conference every year, and they were doing building resilience this year, which is one of the things I work on with Hopkins, who is probably my largest client. And so he came around, he gets to me and he says, hi, I don't think I've seen you before. What do you do? So I say, I use Lego Serious, because he said, how do you use Lego Serious Play? I said, I use it with people with dementia. Say that again. I repeat it. He said, do you have photos of you doing that? I said, yeah.
You got a lot.
He said, let me see some photos. I flashed through some photos. He's just, and then, so the conference was going to start. He said, we'll talk more. And he went over to, he was talking, I knew they were talking about me. I'm one of the few people doing that. And I had looked for somebody for a long time. There's nobody else really doing it in this way. So, and the reason he was so struck by it, turns out I had made these little fidget toy things, and I had given one to each of the conference organizers. And so, this has kept my mom sane in the car in DC traffic. So
and by the way, if you're listening, she's showing this on the video. So you can go to the show notes and see the video of Loretta.
And it's really cool. And so I make these in all kinds of colors and sizes and stuff. Anyway, so I gave one to each of the participants, and he got his. I have pictures of it. He's spinning it. And he said, would you be upset if I gave this to? So he explains that this guy he used to work with for years, and one of his best friends ever has it. And he said, would it be okay with you if I gave it to him? And I was like, no, that would be awesome. And I never expected the man to send me. He sent me a picture, and the guy's face was like,
listen, dementia is not a death sentence. Like it is. People can.
His face was priceless.
Yes, you can live amazingly with dementia, and
it was cool.
As you're talking to Loretta, I'm thinking like I don't know if you know this about me, but I have a brother that's got a developmental and intellectual disability. He's 60 years old, and we with the siblings, like my parents are deceased now, so it's us figuring it out for Tom. Okay. But I'm going to try the Legos as a holiday gift this year. And we do our Tom Tuesdays. And I'm going to see if I'm going to do my own little experiment to see if Legos can
Please let
bring
me
Tom
know.
and I together. Yes.
Please
Because
let me know.
I think it's still a brain thing, right? He's neurodivergent. Like
It is. I
yes.
actually did a thing last year. Had never heard of this place. It's like 30 minutes from my house. And it's called Brain Injury Services. It's exactly as it sounds. So kids who, fell off their skateboard, ran into a tree skiing,
TBIs and stuff.
somebody,
Yes.
anything like car accident, whatever. Yeah. And I did it for their staff. And an activity coordinator saw it on somebody's something, and they went back to work saying, you got to have this woman on. So I did the whole staff. And so funny you asked, should there be more people doing this? So now I'm training other people to become facilitators.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that for the first time this
Gosh, I'm
weekend
tempted to be like,
in
sign me
Texas.
up. And I'm like, girl, you can't not do one other thing. Like you
I
need
know,
to just,
right?
yes.
I
Let
know.
Loretta
You
train.
cannot do it.
I cannot do another thing. And Loretta, you're amazing. Like I love the stuff that you're doing. I love that you put joy in your life. Like this is coming out, this episode in 2024. So one of the things we do every year is like the 20 to 24 list is what we're going to call it. It is a way to encourage caregivers to infuse more joy in their day. This is not about resolutions, things like that. This is like, maybe you want to play with Legos on your 20 for 24 list, or travel, or do something that is going to like infuse joy. So I'm going to link to that in the show notes. And and a lot of the things, the book links that we talked about, and some of the stuff that we didn't get to, like I'm going to put some of the other things I've, done my detective stuff on Loretta to prepare for this, but we got to save a few minutes for the lightning round. So if you're good with it, okay, here we go. You're ready.
No pressure.
What celebrity would you choose to spend the day with?
Oprah.
And why?
I would love to, she has her little favorite things. I'd like to do a list with her. I'd like to do Lego Serious play with her.
Yes,
too.
If Oprah does it, everyone's doing it. So like,
I like that.
Yeah,
that would be my celebrity. Yeah,
I love it. And I feel like we need a whole talk show around caregiving. So think of Loretta, and not someone else needs to do it, but we're happy to come on
be on it.
Yeah. Let's see. What's your self-care plan now? Like you're working hard, you're taking care of a lot of people. We can be at risk for getting compassion fatigue ourselves because we hear a lot of heavy stuff. So like, what's your self-care plan?
I love my self-care plan. I'm very proud of it. So my mom died on January 31st of 2022. So I dedicated 2023, of course, to her, but also now that I didn't have to rush back. So here's my plan. If I work 3 days, like I did 3 days of filming, for example, 2.5 days for Home Instead in Nebraska, in Omaha. That's their headquarters. I had never been to Nebraska. So they were nice enough to let me stay some extra days in this beautiful, the hotel was self-care enough. It was this gorgeous place that had been closed for a while that they renovated. I went to the zoo. Who knew Omaha had the number 3 zoo in the whole world? And a woman that I had never met, who was co-moderating a support group, online support group with me, lived outside of Omaha. Me and her spent the entire day at the zoo. And so I'm very proud to say that I stay in place and play as much as I have worked. And that did wonders. The whole Portland part of the trip, when that person said that they would, do the recording, I was going to Portland anyway to see my cousins and stay there after I did a trek through the state of Washington, but I had a day off in between the 7 days I was in the state of Washington. So I hiked where I could see Mount Rainier. Some people who used to live in DC that now live in Seattle met me. They took me on a different hike. I hiked with some people that I didn't know that I met because they didn't have a lot of signs. I was scared I was going to get lost. They let me tag along with them. And so I'm not afraid to ask people. So
it doesn't sound like it.
I'm really, really, really proud of that, because I was a wreck when I would, fly somewhere, speak, rush back to the airport, fly here, and then rush to work the next. Oh my God. I did that for like 4 years. And after my husband died. So it's that's crazy. So now you can just kind of
Who's staying and play. It's the new
That's me.
philosophy. It's the
The new.
Loretta way.
And it
I
will
love
continue
it.
in 2024. Yeah.
Well, if your travels ever bring you to Atlanta, I want to be your hike partner.
I'm coming we might have to do a thing. I'm coming to Myrtle Beach. It ain't that far.
Yeah, I'll feed you. Well, anybody's coming to Atlanta. I need to know about that. So
That's cool. I'll write that down.
Yes, that's amazing. Let's see.
I like that question because I'm doing it. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I mean, looking ahead, I think this is be the last question from this is
Okay.
like looking ahead, your to-do list. Like we can get so overwhelmed by everything on our to-do list. How do you make your to-do list more manageable?
So, yeah, I think you have to just stay realistic with it. I mean, I look at my calendar sometimes and I'm like, there's something on here like every day. So like when we hang out.
Do you ever get it all done? That's what I want. I want to.
I actually do. So there's a person waiting for me right now walking. So, we had chat. I actually thought you were in a different time zone. So I had the time wrong. At first I was like, okay, I can't meet you till, because it's at 2:30, not at 1:30 like I thought. Anyway, so yeah. And so I try to make it more realistic. I think sometimes our expectations are too high.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm making
Let's
sure
be real.
I can do, because I did drive a couple hours, in one case almost 3 hours, to get to a hike I really wanted to do, and it was worth every minute of that drive. And so yeah, if you don't know when you're ever going to get back that way, I try
Make
to
an effort.
I
love a new hiking trail. Like I usually have that on my 20 for 20 list.
I'm coming to Atlanta, so
I live near Kennesaw Mountain, so that's like a
I
Civil
know it.
War
Yes.
battlefield, very that it's still well preserved. We don't have many mountains around where I live, so
okay.
it's yes. And then we also have a great trail called the Silver Comet Trail that was an old railroad that they paved. And
I've never done it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah. So listen,
I'll put that on my list.
It's a good spot, and we got pretty decent weather here all times of year. Well, Loretta, is there any other parting words of wisdom? Anything that you were like, oh man, we cannot end this if we don't say this? We need to know.
As I would say, we were just talking about this, in a different way, just manage your expectations. Sometimes our expectations are too high for our loved ones, and then we get too low or too high. Just try to pace yourselves. The one thing I would say that we don't realize when we're in it, there is no expiration date for your caregiving journey. You look in your cabinet and you see stuff expired and you throw it away. Well, you don't get that when your person is diagnosed with whatever it is. In your brother's case, it's not ending. And so, and I live next door to a family that is in, the same situation. They were twins, but one of them's fine and one of them isn't. And so, you go through all that. So if you don't pace yourselves, you are really out of it. Yeah. And so I think a lot of times we set our expectations so high that, they can be unrealistic. So just try to pace yourselves along the journey to give yourself the best chance of not suffering, burnout or any of those other things.
Yes, exactly. How do people find out more information about
it's
what
so
you
easy.
Yeah.
So easy. LorettaVeney.com. Doesn't get much easier than that.
Yes. And Veney is Veney. So
yes.
Loretta. So we'll link to all of that in your show notes page. Loretta, I knew this was going to be a delightful conversation, but you've exceeded my expectations today. So I'm motivated, and you're making a difference.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yay, this was so much fun. And I'm writing Atlanta down. I might be going that way. We'll see.
Yeah. You never know. Have an amazing rest of your day, Loretta. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us today on the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast on the Whole Care Network. As always, show notes that accompany today's episode can be found on my website, happyhealthycaregiver.com. Just look under the podcast menu for today's episode image, and that will take you to the page with the links and information we spoke about today. You'll also find other resources on the website, along with links to purchase the Just For You Daily Self-Care Journal. When you purchase from my website, you'll get a signed copy, and for a limited time, free shipping. If you've enjoyed what you heard today, consider subscribing to the show on your podcast platform. It really helps other family caregivers find the podcast, and you'll automatically receive our bi-weekly shows in your podcast listening queue. Maybe while you're subscribing, consider leaving a 5-star rating and review, or just simply talk it up on your social channels. Let's stay connected. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Happy Healthy Caregiver. And until we meet again, please take care of you.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.